I post a TikTok explaining what my documentary is about, and 6 million people see it in one day. And it was free. That's where I get stuck.
Welcome to the 9 to 5 Quitters Club, the podcast uncovering the creator entrepreneurs at the forefront of a work revolution. Today we're speaking with Erin McGoff, a filmmaker-turned-content creator who built Advice with Erin into a thriving career platform after pivoting from her documentary filmmaking background during the pandemic. In this episode, we explore how Erin transitioned from traditional filmmaking into becoming a digital creator.
I graduated from American University with a degree in film. I always knew I wanted to work in the film industry since I was a little girl. I did. I got a Pulitzer Fellowship. I directed a feature documentary that premiered when I was 23. Life was going so great for me. And then the pandemic hit and everything came to a screeching halt.
Erin shares her controversial takes on the future of entertainment.
YouTube is going to topple Netflix in the next 5 to 10 years. I really admire YouTube and what they're doing over there. Moving to the living room. I love that democratized access. I love how the cream of the crop just rises and people decide who gets famous, unlike the film industry where a very, very small amount of people decide what gets made and who gets famous.
And make sure to stick around till the end for Erin's platform strategy that's helped her build a sustainable creator business.
YouTube is the place to double down. I think that TikTok, hopefully they're not listening to this, but I think they're going to Facebookify themselves and become too cluttered. They're already doing that with the amount of ads they showed.
This episode is packed with practical advice for creators looking to build sustainable businesses while maintaining their creative integrity, with insights on platform strategy, audience building, and how to navigate the evolving creator economy. Let's dive in, and I hope you enjoy this conversation with Erin McGoff.
So I graduated from American University with a degree in film. I always knew I wanted to work in the film industry since I was a little girl. I did. I got a Pulitzer Fellowship. I directed a feature documentary that premiered when I was 23. Life was going so great for me. And then the pandemic hit and everything came to a screeching halt. And up until that point, I had really scrappily made my way through, I think, the most competitive and cutthroat industry in the world. And I didn't realize that. But the film industry is truly, will rip you to shreds. And in that journey, I had gathered a lot of fantastic career advice. And so I started posting, just things that I would tell my friends. Like I was always the go-to friend to give you career advice. And I just started posting stuff that literally I would just send to my friends. And it started to go crazy viral. I realized that there was a massive need for just like relatable, down-to-earth, realistic career advice. And so I just started creating content. I was kind of up against becoming like an influencer. That wasn't really something that I wanted. So I actually got a job at National Geographic while I was freelance video editing, kind of running my own company, but, full-time consulting for them with their TikTok launch. And then in 2022, push kind of came to shove with Advice with Erin. It was taking up a lot of my time and really exploding. So I decided to take it full-time. And now I run Advice with Erin. I have a lot of things going on. But yeah, I work for myself. It was never really the idea that I'd work for someone else. It was kind of always the plan.
I'm curious, from your perspective, where do you think we are in this historical moment as far as creators versus the industry you came from? And what's most exciting to you about this time?
It's definitely a big conversation that people have behind closed doors in the entertainment industry. I think that YouTube is going to topple Netflix in the next 5 to 10 years. I really admire YouTube and what they're doing over there. Moving to the living room. And I love that democratized access. I love that how the cream of the crop just rises and people decide who gets famous, unlike the film industry where a very, very small amount of people decide what gets made and who gets famous. So I'm very optimistic about that. I think generally the entertainment industry will move where there's attention. Of course, there's like a concern there with things that garner attention, as we've seen with a lot of media and social media and podcasts and stuff. People definitely get put into echo chambers and they just want to hear confirmation bias and they want to find their tribe. And, that can lead to some really like devastating side effects. But, overall, I think that, obviously we spend more time looking at our phones than we do at TVs currently. And I just think content creation is the future.
It sounds like that excites you.
I'm a very optimistic person.
Yeah. Having gone through this journey yourself, for someone who's maybe just graduating high school and wants to be a filmmaker, what would be your advice? What's the trajectory you would give for them that you think will build a career in the next 20 years?
I always recommend that people just go make films. Quentin Tarantino said, I didn't go to film school, I went to films. And that's so obnoxious for me to say as somebody who like went to film school. Like I understand how that sounds annoying, but the truth is of the matter is making my first film was a better education than film school. College is great for networking and having space to make mistakes and figure out what you want and expose yourself to new information and new people. But it's not going to teach you how to navigate a very, very, very competitive and opaque industry that is very much stuck in the times. So if I were somebody coming out of high school looking at getting into the film industry, look, if you have a free ride to college, take it. If your parents are paying for college, go. But if it's, going to put you in debt or you can't get into a good program, start a YouTube. Honestly, start a YouTube regardless and just
Yeah.
start making
Yeah.
stuff and start posting stuff, create a brand around yourself. Hollywood hasn't caught up to it yet. They're not really keen on funding a lot of YouTubers. There's a lot of around that, they've tried and it hasn't quite stuck yet. But I would absolutely just invest in personal branding because at the end of the day, audience and your amount of followers and subscribers, that matters. And that equals dollar bills.
Love that. I want to dig a little more into look at your YouTube channel. It looks like you care about thumbnails, you care about titles, you pay attention to those games. With what you're doing now, coming from your background, are you creatively satisfied doing this kind of stuff?
Again, like a really good question. Because I was thinking, I got into the film industry, yes, to make an impact, but, I wanted to go to Sundance. I wanted to win an Oscar. I wanted to be on a red carpet and accept an award. There were glamorous sides of the film industry that I was also looking forward to. And it really kind of breaks my heart to think oh man, I'm just kind of in my room on my computer all day, making these little videos. It's not glamorous, but it is extremely lucrative. And making films is not lucrative. It's
Yeah.
not, unless you got into the industry before 15 years ago. Yeah, you got lucky, but it's not anymore. Documentary filmmaking is a hobby. You have to have a security blanket. And it's a very, very sad truth of the industry that a lot of people who have security blankets are able to make creative things. And we lose out on a lot of artists because of that. So I think that my my business plan is to be very successful as a content creator and create a lot of value in the world, build a big business, and then go fund the things that I want to make. Go fund filmmakers, go fund my own projects because I got real tired of trying to beg people for scraps, to take a chance on me. Even when I had millions of followers, I was still in pitch meetings with big streamers and they could not understand what they were turning down. So I am creatively fulfilled because I love the challenge of taking really dry career advice and making it funny. And I know that I provide a lot of value. But yeah, at the end of the day, I want to go make my Little Miss Sunshine or my Napoleon Dynamite. I want to go make my indie movies. But it's maybe, a little bit later on in my career when I can do it the way that I want to do it.
Very practically, was that switch hard? How did directing films like This Little Land of Mines or the other documentaries you've done, was that an easy transition into the YouTube space because you had the storytelling background? Or was that hard to adapt to this world?
It's a good question. A lot of people have asked, did your film school experience inform your content creation? And I'm like, well, yeah, I'm a video editor. I know how to tell a story. I know all these editing tricks. I can create content faster than other people because of that. But at the end of the day, I think content creation informed my filmmaking more because what it did is it taught me about psychology. And it taught me about what keeps a person watching, because what you're doing when you're creating content is that every single millisecond somebody's paying attention to your video, they are debating whether or not to scroll away. And so the entire video, you have to be convincing them to stick around. And that doesn't mean that your video needs to be chaotic and fast paced and all in their face. I was just watching Peter Santinella, who just walks through cities with a camera. And I'm glued to the screen for an hour while nothing's going on, So it's just about figuring out why is that so interesting to me, and then using that to inform the filmmaking.
Do you think then traditional filmmaking or just that culture takes an audience's attention for granted?
Yeah, I mean, I think you'll always have your artists, your people who want you to sit in a black box at the MoMA and watch their 5-hour film where you watch a plant grow. There's always going to be that person, and I respect them. That's not me. I want to create pop content. I want to create somebody's favorite movie and somebody's favorite content. I want to be that content that somebody saves. It goes back. And that's what I've always wanted to do. I've always wanted to make movies that make people feel better about themselves and the world. So, whether that makes me an artiste or not, capital C cinema, that's just not really what I'm interested in. I'm more of a marketer.
If you have these kind of things in mind, I would love to directly compare some of the techniques you use for your Laos documentary versus some of your like good girl syndrome TikToks. Were there things that just one-to-one were the same? Or is it a totally different thing?
Yeah, I think the number one thing is just like, what emotional appeal does this have? Like for This Little Land of Mines, it's like every little choice that I made as a director was figuring out how to make the scene more impactful. You know, working with the score composer, even working with the color designer, and I edited that film. And at every little element along the way, it's like, how do we make this land without, with still respecting the audience, and not giving them too much? Because I think sometimes people can look at pander to audiences and you need to have a little bit more faith in your audience. And then, if you go to my TikTok about the good girl syndrome, it's the same thing. I'm making people feel something and feeling like they're coming to the conclusion of resonating with the content. So I think at the end of the day, again, I have a marketing brain. I just think about my content as a marketing material, and marketing materials that are successful are those that make people feel. And they can feel outrage, they can feel laughter and humor, they can feel sadness, they can feel relatability. So whenever I create any type of content, I'm always wondering, how is this going to make my audience feel? What are the comments going to look like? Which again goes back to that, a true artist doesn't care about what people think. But, when you're trying to create social content, you definitely do care about what people think.
We'll be right back after this brief message. This podcast is brought to you by Teachable and therefore has no sponsors. So we just wanted to take a moment to encourage you to go check out Erin's YouTube channel and her podcast, No One Knows What They're Doing. Creators like Erin are the reason this podcast exists, so supporting them helps support our ability to bring you more of their stories and lessons. You can find more from Erin at youtube.com/@advicewitherin, which is also linked in the show notes or description wherever you're watching or listening. What's your favorite emotion to make people feel with content?
I think seen and heard, warm, less alone. Yeah, these are the feelings that if you go through my videos, I kind of strike this balance of you're in a big sister. I've been there. I feel that. But also a little kick in the butt. I keep it real. I don't just say things that sound good on the internet, but that actually work in real life. And that can be hard sometimes. People will say, well, it shouldn't be that way. And I'm like, well, it is. So gotta wake up and go to work. Sorry, guys.
I think it's so interesting. Documentary filmmaking, you have to be rigorous about your facts. There's an editorial standard and ethic to it. Content's trickier. As someone with that editorial rigor, how are you navigating this AI space or just making content?
What's so funny, Jonah, is that right after this call, I'm giving an hour-long presentation to a newsroom collective of journalists from all over the country. And I've been working with this organization called the Video Consortium, which I am a part of, but I was very involved while I was freelance editing because they were excellent nonfiction organization. So shout out to them. But I'm giving a presentation to newsrooms about this topic. I'm talking about balancing sensationalism with rigorous journalism, because it's very, very hard for classic newsrooms who abide to ethics and codes and the AP standard for them to compete with the podcasters and the people who are spreading misinformation, and they're going viral because, well, why wouldn't they? What they're saying sounds more interesting than the truth. Trying to make them very neutral because, as somebody with a journalistic past, I don't care about hot takes. I care about the truth, because I think the truth is the most interesting thing. And that's why my production company is called Gray Films. It's because I love the nuance. I love the gray. Life isn't black and white. The news isn't black and white. I grew up in the DC area. Okay, both sides of the aisle are cuckoo. It's just, I'm so interested in the truth. And I think I'd have 20 million followers right now if I was a little bit more lenient on that. I could definitely make more sensational videos telling people that AI is coming for them, and if they don't do these 3 things and buy my course, that they're going to lose their job. But at the end of the day, I think that's playing the short game, and I really value and respect my audience, and I'm here to give them as honest and as truthful as information as I possibly can.
Yeah, I've been fascinated with the rise of channels like Johnny Harris or the New Press channels, who are serving as a alternative to news, but in a documentary format. But I always wonder, how do you do that without a team? Because they have 4 people fact checking and researching.
It's really hard.
And I'm even curious, very practical advice for someone who wants to do that kind of thing. Do you start short form just because that's easier to manage?
It's literally so funny you're asking about all this because I literally am giving an hour-long presentation right after this podcast about this. But I was talking about a few tools.
You
Like
have
there's, I literally have the notes. Like there's, I was telling them about like, so AI is like very controversial, obviously. And like, you cannot just go to ChatGPT and say, fact check this. Like, that's not going to work because what they're going to do is pull from Reddit sarcastic posts and they can't detect what's really true and what's not. But there are some tools like Perplexity, you can train it to only draw from certain sources, or you can put in like large documents. Pinpoint is something that Google came out with to help read large documents. There's a really interesting creator. I'm obsessed with her content. She has a podcast called Unbiased, which is bold, but she knows that. Yeah, Jordan.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate her. And I'm really curious about her workflow because she's putting out really heavy content every day. And she seems to be kind of a one-man band right now. And yeah, I'd be curious.
I also
I'm not
don't
the
know how
expert.
she does it. Yeah, I don't know if she's just like 3 months ahead, but then it's still very topical.
I think she just wakes up at 5 a.m. every morning and does it. And like, I'm sure that, AI is going to get to the point where it really can help with that stuff. Like next week, it could. People don't really understand how quickly AI is innovating right now. It's like doubling every day the amount that it can do. So I'm very optimistic about AI.
How do you focus with all the things you can do as a creator to put that energy into a place where you can build a business? If you're to choose one platform to put that energy into, even if it's hard and other people are blowing up on TikTok and stuff, what do you think the best path is for a creator who wants to help people?
I think that YouTube is the place to double down. I think that TikTok, hopefully they're not listening to this, but I think they're going to Facebookify themselves and become too cluttered. They're already doing that with the amount of ads they show. TikTok Shop. It truly feels like brain rot going on TikTok. I still love the platform because it gave me everything, but I don't believe it's the best place to invest long time. I think TikTok is an excellent R&D lab. It's a great place to post content and to see what works and what doesn't. Instagram is where you're going to build community. At the end of the day, brands are loving Instagram. It's what they know. It's been around. It's on our meta. It has decent analytics. I think Instagram's a great place to build community for, the DM feature, the stories. They have all that stuff going on. YouTube is going to, I predict, just outlive everything. I love the way that they run YouTube. I love the new features they add. They obviously value creators since they're the only platform that pays creators regularly. They're the only platform that I feel like I can get in touch with, I think they're just really creator friendly. And I think that YouTube is going to be watched more on TVs, like medium-sized or big screens than small screens, which is really fantastic. I would also highly recommend that people explore podcasts. I thought that was a bubble. I guess it's not. They just continue to grow and get more and more popular. And also, I know Substack is really blowing up right now. I'm not much of a writer, but I do have a newsletter. It's funny, a lot of people say, start a newsletter so that you own your audience, but then they go to Substack. And I'm like, okay, but you're doing it on a platform you don't own.
Yeah.
So if you start a newsletter, I actually recommend using Kit or, I use Kit and I really like them. So like having an audience that you do actually own is really great just to back that up.
With that in mind, I talked to a friend over these last holidays whose cousin, like I don't even know, I guess it's Gen Alpha, was blowing away. He's like, do you know there's long videos on YouTube?
Oh my gosh.
Made me feel so old. Yeah. How do you think about that journey or like what each thing fills for your business, from shorts to mid to long form content to then getting people on your email list while still serving what the platform wants, which is to keep people on the platform?
Totally. For me, YouTube is like my next white whale. I'm really investing a lot into YouTube this year. I have a video podcast that I'm posting every week on YouTube, which is a ton of work. On top of that, I'm trying to create very high quality personal professional development videos that are very enjoyable, that are jam-packed with great information. Like I'm about to post one that's just like how to stop caring about what people think. And like it took me weeks to write, forever to edit and film, but I'm hoping that people will see the effort I'm putting in and, subscribe, because YouTube subscribers are loyal. They are my highest converting subscribers. They are very passionate. I'm building a great community there. So I'm really excited about YouTube. And also it pays, which is a great sustainable income for creators. So that's a big reason why I definitely recommend investing in YouTube. You need an Instagram. You just do. Instagram is a new website. Like it's just, you need to have a good base with Instagram and be maintaining those. I personally waterfall my content. So I'll make, I'll film like 10 videos in one day. I have a specific day, and my hair's done, my nails are done. I have a spray tan. I get it all done in one day. Being a girl, huh? And I use the rest of the month to like write and think about ideas and read my DMs and see people are struggling with. And then I will post the video on TikTok, and then the next day I'll post it on Instagram, go over to YouTube Shorts, then LinkedIn, and just kind of like do that with all my content, which is actually really tedious. A lot of people will use like social scheduling and just like, post their content and use the same caption. And I like to actually customize things for each platform and write like custom captions just because I personally like to experiment and see what's working and what's not. Like, for example, right now, I can't figure out Instagram. Instagram changed their algorithm like 2 months ago, and I never, ever, ever complained about the algorithm, but something happened. I'm like, well, what is going on? So yeah, to answer your question, I think that I would invest in YouTube for like sustainability because creators, brand deals are great, brand deals are lucrative. And, the 80-20 rule, like 20% of your effort leads like 80% of the results. And for me, that's definitely brand deals, and brands love to see high engagement. Followers don't matter as much as they used to. It's really about, do your followers like you and do they trust you? Because a lot of people have, 8 million followers, but they never buy anything from them because they're always shilling random things, So it's really about engagement, and YouTube is definitely a great place for both engagement and for sustainable revenue.
So you teed me up here. Do you ever run into conflicts with the sponsors that want you to do things, but then the obligation you have to like still share your perspective and voice with your audience?
Yeah. And I think that's what a lot of people don't see behind the scenes with creators. There are a lot of creators who just say yes to everything, and they won't tell you the honest truth about a lot of things because, well, they want that money. They want to get their bag, and that's fine. To each their own. Yeah, definitely. Brands will slide into my DMs with a great deal, and I'm like, I don't believe in this. I don't believe it's a good product. I don't believe it's in good faith, and I don't think it's worth it to my audience. I have made videos about like tax filing and how people can do it for free on directfile.irs.gov. You have to be fair about things. Every company's going to have its downside. Everybody uses Amazon Prime. Like, come on, guys. But I definitely only endorse things that I endorse. And that doesn't mean my endorsement's going to last forever. The company could change in the future. But in the moment, yeah, if you see me do a sponsored deal, I'm like, yeah, I'd personally use this product, or I used to use this product, or I have friends that use this product. And it's just a personal thing for creators. I can sleep really well at night, but nobody will ever see the money that I turn down.
We'll be right back after this brief message. This podcast is brought to you by Teachable, the platform that empowers you to share your knowledge, engage deeply with your audience, and earn all on your own terms. Because you are more than your 9-to-5, and Teachable has everything you need to grow the business or side hustle you think about while you're at your day job. You can get started turning your knowledge into a business for free at teachable.com. That's teachable.com, which is also linked in the show notes or description wherever you're watching or listening. Okay, now back to the episode. Do you have like red flags you can share so that you still can sleep at night with every sponsor you choose?
I mean, I think it's just like up to you. The first red flag is like, is my audience going to hate me for this? Like if this company was recently in the news for laying off 30,000 employees and I'm posting a video about how they're so great, is my audience going to get mad at me? And maybe you feel whatever way about the layoffs, companies do layoffs. But like if your audience is going to have a negative backlash, that's definitely something that you want to consider. If it's warranted or not, that doesn't really matter. What matters is like the perception. Yeah, another thing is just like very new companies. We saw that a lot like with FTX when that came out. And a lot of creators were promoting FTX. And I was like, this is, I just gotta stay away from anything like really new and shiny like that. Yeah, I still do a lot of like scam investigating. And so anything kind of like that, I stay away from personally. Finance stuff I'm really picky about. I try to make sure that it's pretty buttoned up. But anything finance is going to be a little icky at the end of the day. I mean, anything, it's capitalism. Like anything's going to be a little icky at the end of the day. So
it has to be personal. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's why you should reach out to brands you use, and form relationships with them and long-term relationships with them. Because it's so much easier to make content for brands that you actually use. And what's funny? Like I'm doing a partnership with Purina right now, like the dog food. And that sounds so random. Like, why would Advice with Erin ever do a partnership, but their campaign is all about like hiring like a chief snuggle officer. So it was career advice. Like,
That's
it
cute.
actually fit really well.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
at first I was like, that's random. But then I remember just like how much I actually really admire Purina because I used to volunteer as like a transporter for dog shelters. I'm really, really passionate about like adopt, don't shop. And Purina was like always donating free dog food. Like they were keeping those shelters going. And so I felt really good about that partnership because on a personal level, I was really like connected with Purina and the campaign was a good fit. So I'm sharing that to share with you like how I think through things. Obviously, when like LinkedIn and Indeed are in my DMs, I'm like, yeah, that's a perfect fit. That makes sense. But sometimes like other perfect fits will come into my DMs and I'm like, I don't know about this campaign. Like, so it has to be like a brand fit, but also a campaign fit, if you know what I mean.
It's a bit of a pivot, but we like touched on it earlier. What documentary style techniques do you think are just going to continue to dominate and work well in content in the next few years?
So I think where I got stuck with your question is like my content isn't documentary at all. Documentary is like when you go out and you observe something with a camera and I'm like doing sketches with myself. So I don't really consider any of it documentary.
I'm curious if there are even just like, how do you build your shot lists? How do you build your scripts? Like, are there just literal processes that did transfer over? I know you don't literally make documentary stuff, but you have the chops and it's clear in what you make that you have told those kind of stories.
I see. Like you're talking about like process. Yes. So I got to a point where I was getting really sick of like trying to fit so much into 60 seconds because I did. Like I came from documentary background, like filmmaking background, like there was space to breathe. And as you can hear, like I'm a pretty quick person. Like I like quick content. I like to talk quickly. But I did miss like having a little bit of space and having a little bit of nuance. And so that's why I started my podcast, my YouTube show, No One Knows What They're Doing. And I brought on guests where we would talk for over an hour about like their career. And then we talk about their expertise and like questions that a lot of people ask themselves, should I move to Europe? Like all these, kind of like daunting questions that 20 somethings ask themselves. And that was really fun for me because as a documentary filmmaker, I am a good interviewer. Like I think I'm probably better than the average person, when it comes to interviewing. I've done it a lot. And so that was really fun to like do what you're doing right now. Like, think of questions and get inside somebody's head and like, ask them things they haven't been asked before and get that soundbite. And that was really fun for me. And being a documentary filmmaker absolutely did inform that. When it comes to like my workflow, absolutely. Yeah, I'm writing scripts. One side I'm having the VO, the other side I'm having the visual. And, I mainly work with myself, but I do have a couple editors that I work with and we'll use those workflows. I'll give feedback in Frame.io. I'll share notes. I'll give examples. But yeah, like when I sit down in the evening, I'm watching like Johnny Harris, Cleo Abrams good.
Oh, love
like I said,
yeah.
Yeah. Like I said, I'm on a big Peter Santinello kick right now because I think people are getting a little bit tired of in your face, brain rot. I think we are craving just turning something on and just leaving it on, I'll turn on Jordan's podcast. I've been really loving Scott Galloway's everything. I've been listening to his podcasts every morning. I love Morning Brew and just kind of having it on, and having it in the background. That's definitely something that I'm looking to do with my career. The second season of my podcast, I'm actually giving live career advice. So people call in and I give them on the spot, unfiltered career advice. So I think kind of doing that, you mentioned in the moment, like documentary style, esque stuff. But yeah, I have big dreams of like going back into documentary, but to be frank, like the money is just wasn't there for me. And so that's, yeah, it's
so like
not.
As far as styles and techniques, it sounds like you're working towards making the kind of content that'll scratch that itch, but what you've built at the moment is not so literally attached.
Yeah, for sure. I'm really focused on impact right now. And so, yeah, like I made this massive, beautiful documentary that I poured my soul into for 2 years. And I scraped and I did crowdfunding campaigns and I applied for grants and I went to Laos and I hired a Lao production team and I made sure every little thing was done right. And I don't know, maybe 500,000 people saw it. But I post a TikTok explaining what my documentary is about and 6 million people see it. And that's where I get stuck, where I'm like, is it ego? Because that's ego for me, is going, the Sundance Oscar route and putting on my Nat Geo and going to another country and filming a documentary. Yeah, that looks cool and it's really fun. But like at the end of the day, my goal is impact. And if making TikToks in my room is making a bigger impact in the world, then that's at least what I'm going to do for now.
So with the time we have left, creators are really good at talking about the mission, what they're trying to do, the impact they're trying to have. I rarely get a literal answer of like what you want your life to look like. You mentioned a bit that you want to be able to then fund whatever other film you want to make. What does that look like? When do you know when you've crossed from building into existing in the thing you tried to build?
Well, here's the interesting thing about that, like having that goal. The film industry isn't like what it used to be. So like pre-COVID, it was just different. It was more in the zeitgeist. I don't know, maybe I'm just older now, but like I don't really know what's in the theaters right now. I didn't really watch any of the Best Picture nominations. I'm just not really in it anymore. And I'm way more interested in like these YouTubers. And I just find their content, it's accessible. I love supporting them. It's less gatekept, to be honest. And so the question is like, do I want to go back into the matrix? I don't know. Like, I don't know if making a film would even be worth it to me anymore. I think that I'll end up having a YouTube studio and like I'll publish my films on YouTube. Like I'm not going to go the theater route, although you can't be qualified for an Oscar if you don't do that. Like that's what I'm saying is it's so archaic the way the film industry is. And, you might not even need to go through a studio or go through traditional distribution. You can just post it on YouTube and make it $2 or, put a couple ads in there. And I think that it's the future. I think that if I was running Warner Brothers or, Columbia or a huge studio, I would absolutely like set up a YouTube studio and start putting out short films. I don't know why they don't. So to answer your question, like my long form strategy is to go where people's eyeballs are going, and people's eyeballs are going to their phones and to YouTube. And, Netflix, of course, people are still watching Netflix and Hulu and HBO at night, but they've all kind of become the same and they all kind of put out so much content. And so I don't really know what the future is for these huge streaming platforms because they don't really make content based off of what people want to see. They make content based off what the data shows. So like when I was pitching for a couple of years, I stopped like a year ago because it was like just such an awful experience. They don't care about what you're making or who's even attached. They care about like, have we made something in the past like this that made us money? Like what's our bottom line? Is it's going to get more subscribers? And that's like, I just don't know what the future is.
It's just kind of a bummer too. But in your own personal life, are you working towards an exit strategy where you sell this thing, you get capital to grow it, like a new press style thing where you build a business around it, or just a sustainable way to put out content every week? Or do you not think about that?
Oh, no. I think about it all day, every day. Because being a content creator is really interesting because I am Erin. I am Advice with Erin. So how the heck do you sell Advice with Erin? And that's okay. That's fine. I love what I do. I love waking up and helping people every day and getting paid well. I get to sit at home with my dog. I get to spend time with my family and friends. It's the dream. It's the dream career. It's the easiest career I've ever had. It's amazing. But yes, I do think about that. I can't really say anything right now, but I'm in talks with a company about that. And I am creating a product/business that is going to be huge. It's definitely going to be much bigger than Advice with Erin. And I'm very, very excited about it. I'm doing the book thing, coming out with the book. I'm really excited about that. So that'll be next year, doing all these things. But I'm definitely building something really, really big behind the scenes. And I'm very, very excited about that and having something that's a little bit separate that doesn't require me to put on makeup, to perform well. I think about Advice with Erin as like my first successful company. And it's like, okay, what's next?
If nothing else, the coolest thing is Advice with Erin has opened the door to those conversations in a format you controlled.
It's easier to get money from Silicon Valley than it is to get it from HBO. That is what I've learned, which is crazy. It's much easier.
We kind of got to wrap up here, but what's your advice to that person who's in the game, but hitting that block from like 1 to 2?
If you want content creation to be a business, you have to treat it like a business. So you can't just think, I'm going to wake up and fiddle around and, post something. Oh, it didn't perform. You got to think, no, like I need to sit down and plan out my week. Like, what are we going to experiment with? What are we going to A/B test? Like, what's the latest happening with Instagram? What are other creators in my space doing? What's working? What's not working? I think at the end of the day, my advice is that you can create any format. You can go on YouTube and make a documentary. You can go on TikTok and create skit videos. You can go create carousels on Instagram. You can do anything you want. You should only do things that you actually enjoy, though, because that's the only sustainable solution. If you get so many creators get stuck in creating content that they don't actually like creating. And it's because they made one video and it did really well and they think that's the only one they can do. So they keep making that same video and then they burn out because they never actually liked it. I started with just giving film industry career advice. And then I made it more general because I was kind of getting burnt out. And I'm so glad that I did that because it opened me up to a larger audience. So yeah, I just recommend create the content that you want to see. I know that's so generic, but it's really true because there are people like you out there and they want to see that content too. So just make stuff that you really enjoy making because that's the only really way to run a sustainable content creation business and to not burn out.
I love it. We're going to leave it there. Erin, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. I'm going to bug you whenever your big new thing comes out because I'm so curious about that long term for creators. But thank you for your time. I hope you have a wonderful day.
Thank you so much for having me. This was a lovely conversation.
Erin is a great example of how creators can leverage their specialized knowledge and skills to build something meaningful and sustainable. Even when traditional career paths don't work out, her journey from documentary filmmaker to trusted career advisor shows how leaning into your unique perspective can create both impact and income in today's creator economy. I hope you learned as much as I did today, found something you can apply to your life, and if nothing else, we're inspired by Erin's story to take a hard look at your 9-to-5 and make sure the way you work is working for you. If you want to join the thousands of other creative entrepreneurs who are building an income out of their impact, click the link in the description to join the club and learn how Teachable can help you do the same. And if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and check out our recommended next episode linked here. Thanks for being here. We'll catch you in the next one.